Hey folks, Steve here with another Fall of the Third Reich video. Today we'll be looking at turn 10, which is a very special turn, really, for us as we were progressing our way through the game, because we are down to the last, I guess, quarter of the game, you could look at it as, right? If you break the game up into 3-turn chunks, we are on the final chunk of the game, and I suspect we may not see the end of turn, like we might get to turn 12, might. It just depends on how the next couple of actions kind of break out here, but it's certainly coming in to the end game. It certainly feels that way, right? We see the Third Reich is collapsing, and we have, as the Allies cleaned up the Mediterranean front, that is pretty much done with. We have our supply markers for the Allies positioned on two sides of France, projecting supply into France proper so we can keep pushing the Axis back. The Balkan front is also pretty much done. We just will have one little invasion landing in Athens to clear, what would be a small detachment holding it that is not represented by a counter in the game. So then that front will be totally, fully done. And then the East front, you can see we're making progress, and really the West front too, right? So we're, what started as a whole map game is now starting to become a game that's really like that as we sort of get into the end stages here. So a couple of things to talk about because it is turn 10. There's a couple of special things that I want to talk through. One is, now that it is 1945, the Allies get a +2 air trace in any hex that is going to be invaded. So this allows us to invade Athens with a +2, where we otherwise would not have a +2, basically making it so that we really can't fail to invade and land in Athens. So it's pretty much a guarantee at this point, not a big deal, sort of something that was going to happen no matter what. Anyway, and then the other thing to consider is that everyone's replacement rate changes, and really everyone's goes down. The Soviets go down, the Allies go down, and I'm not sure how you want to look at that, like, Did production go down during 1945? Was there a drawdown? I don't think so. But I don't know. Maybe it's just a game balancing feature here. All war games are ultimately an abstraction, right? So, however which way you want to look at it, which means that, wherever we push as the Allies, we just have to keep in mind we're going to have less capability to replace those losses over these last couple of turns. We can go for broke, but we got to be careful how much we spend in terms of blood, right? What else here? Let's see, there's something else to do with this. This is a winter turn, right? So if I'm playing with the optional winter rules, which I have been, it is a winter turn. And winter really only affects the Germans and the Soviets. The Western Allies don't seem to have any effect due to winter turns, but this turn and next turn are going to be winter turns, which is going to slow down the Soviets a little bit. I do wonder, with that being an optional rule, like, the game may have been play-tested without a winter rule. So, in theory, maybe the Soviets, based on the original playtesting, would be a little further along, because they had to deal with some winter previous turns. Maybe, they'd be more like over here or something. If we weren't slowed down those couple of turns by winter. I think that's feasible. I think it's possible that it might have worked out that way. So, I don't know. Kind of hard to say, but we will deal with that. And the Soviets will have to use their Stavka markers carefully because of that. We can't get a huge amount of hexes activated for combat, so we have to really pick where do we want to go with that. The Western Allies, not so restricted. They will likely do what they can to smash through the rest of the German defenders and try to seize Western Germany from there. Now, we are into the final phases of the game of 1945, so it is really important that we look at, how do we win? We need to get 17 victory hexes with Berlin or 19 without Berlin. We are currently sitting at 13. We will pick up Athens to make it 14, and then we need to pick up 5, basically, elsewhere. Now, Where are those going to come in? Well, I think for the Allies, it's going to be pretty easy to do that, or ideally will be pretty easy. We have Vienna right there. That's one. We also have the USIR, which is also a factory hex, which is pretty important. And then we also have Warsaw over here, which isn't quite in the Soviets' grasp, but they're pretty close. So you figure we'll probably pick up at least Vienna and the USIR, which is going to impact the German replacement rate once we take it. So that plus Athens, that would be 3 more. So we would be up to 16. And then for the final 3, I mean, I think it depends on how well the Western Allies do over here, right? Strasbourg is worth 1. Amsterdam is worth 1. If we picked up Essen or Dortmund, that would be enough, right? So, depending on how the Soviets break out, how we get to that 19 is sort of unknown. But I strongly suspect that we're going to see the Allies win. Now, if I were playing this opposed, I would certainly understand why an Axis player might say, okay, I give up. I don't see a path to victory here. It's overwhelming. But we'll continue to play it through until we actually reach an official victory condition, because I don't know, something could go wrong for the Allies. We could hold on just long enough to wait them out. I'm not sure how likely that is, but we can try to see. So we'll play it out. Could be, maybe next turn's the last turn. We'll play it out and see. But yeah, there you go, guys. That we're starting in winter turn. Allied air power is full bore. Probably the other thing worth just throwing out there is that the Axis Luftwaffe markers are worth less. So now it's 45. It's a -2 instead of a -3 on these rolls. So it is going to be easier for the Allied air to have an effect, and I suspect that's going to be pretty dramatic once we get to rolling the dice. So it'll be interesting. So as usual, we're going to start off with the reinforcements. The Germans get 4 reinforcement units. Most of them are 1 strength. They're like this, a 1-4 unit. Pretty weak. They do get a C strength Mountaineer unit, which is nice. And then the Soviets get a mechanized unit, and that's it for reinforcements. So this would be a pretty simple thing, but what I probably need to do off camera is just figure out where are they going to go. Like, where are these handful of small weak units going to be valuable? We'll likely still get some replacements, but we need to place something. So, we need to use something. You need to use these guys to the most effectiveness that we can, knowing that we're going to be headed towards the end game here. So I'll take care of that, and we'll come back to talk about strategic air. Okay, so I put all the reinforcements in either victory cities or forts back here. So that's sort of our, last chance defense opportunity, I guess you could look at it as. And then we'll see what replacements we get. If we get a decent number of replacements after Allied bombing, then we would put probably some more in those same hexes, but then we would also need some. Well, we probably ought to send as many reinforcements over here as possible, because I do think that the overwhelming firepower of the Western Allies right now, they're just going to tear right through anything we put out, and I need to get stuff in those factory hexes, into those swamps in the Netherlands, just to have a chance of holding them back for a little bit. So that's probably what we're going to need to do. That's the reality. But let's go ahead and figure out what that air stuff looks like. I do wonder, this is definitely one of those situations where, okay, East or West Front, what do you want to do? Knowing how many victory hexes are close to the front line, I think we'll keep our Luftwaffe in the East Front. So we have one in the home front, one in the East Front. And the Allies are going to... Excuse me. The Allies are going to do Bomber Command doing factory bombing, 8th Air Force doing factory bombing, and the 15th Air Force doing oil again. Because now that we've taken all the oil, that should have a pretty dramatic effect. Even just one, I think it's the right mix. 2 on factory have a pretty good chance of shutting down replacements. And then that oil bombing, now that we've captured all the Axis oil, and it's 1945, I think that should make for a really devastating oil roll. We might even roll, extremely high. Yeah. And the thing is, with the oil bombing, I should point out, there's a maximum of a -3 to the OKW/OKH points, as long as Axis control 1 oil hex and 3 factory hexes that are in supply. Well, they have, right now, 4 factory hexes, but they don't have 1 oil hex anymore. We have all their oil. I'm pretty certain. I don't think there's any hiding on the map anymore. I think they're fresh out of oil. As it stands. So, again, unless I'm missing one, but I think there's just a couple on the map, they could lose all of their OKW/OKH points, in which case this could be the last turn of the game. So, I think that's what we got to do. So we'll go ahead and do the rolls. So, Bomber Command will roll for factory bombing. The total modifiers right now, -2 for the Luftwaffe, and I think that's it. So just -2 instead of -3. I rolled a 5, so -2 is 3. So that's going to definitely impact the Luftwaffe situation. So 1 goes down. We're going to take 3 off German production, and then the 8th Air Force will also roll. And okay, 2 minus 2 is 0, so no effect. So again, we succeeded. I think the last couple of turns it's been 1 succeeded, 1 did not for the factory bombing. So you could imagine, like, well, what if I only did 1? Well, I might not hit at all, and then the Germans have full production. So Americans missed, Bomber Command, the British hit. So 3 production will come off of the German production total, replacement point total, I guess I should say. And then yeah, I think that's it. So because the oil bombing does not happen yet at this phase. So we'll go ahead and do the replacements. So Axis has 4 factories. Yeah, see, that's the tricky thing now. So it is 2 production per factory. So 2 production times 4 factories is 8, minus 3 is 5. 5 production. And I think I need to use, or 5 replacement steps, whatever. I think I need to use all 5 for units, and I think this is where we say no Luftwaffe anymore. No rebuilding the Luftwaffe unit anymore right now, anyway. Just because there's just no, like, what else can we do here? Let's see if there's anything else I should be concerned about for that, if I decide to do it that way. Yeah, I think that's what we'll have to do. So the Germans are going to have to spend all 5 on units, and the reality is, in terms of the replacements, 33% of 5 rounded down would be 1. So 1 step of armor and 4 steps of I think that's the way that works out, because you can't spend it all on armor. So 1 armor, 4 infantry. Boy, that's rough. We'll have to see how it goes. Okay, so I'll take care of those replacements. I'll do the Soviet and Allied replacements, and we'll come back for the invasion. Okay, so replacements are done. I put 1 armor step over here to kind of help project some needed Zocs in the general area to kind of slow down the Soviets, but it's going to be really tough going here. Yeah, it's going to be rough. I don't know. I think that a big breakthrough is going to happen, and we're going to see something go up that way. But besides that, I put several units over here on the left, the west, to try to create a stronger line on the west. I feel like I kind of need to do that. So divvying up the different replacements, hoping to have something here that we can make use of. As it stands. I think this is going to be bad. In general, the Allies had more than enough steps, even though they also have reduced replacement steps. They managed to get theirs going, and then technically, I guess I didn't do the Soviet replacements, but theirs is very straightforward. And I think basically we're going to target just more and more of these areas. That we can for our fast-moving units. That kind of seems to be the best way to go. And what's interesting is, like, yeah, you are limited at the replacements. So, like, they're at Brest-Litovsk and Lvov, which are in the Soviet Union, but it is going to be harder to get units to the front if it extends much further west very quickly, anyway. Okay, so replacements are done. Allied invasion. So we will have an Allied invasion. And I don't even know if it's worth showing on camera. We'll do it. We never took control of Athens yet, so we're going to place one British unit here with the AL marker. And right now, for the invasion die roll for terrain, there is a -1 for a city port. Then there's no defender, so that doesn't matter. The automatic 1945 air trace is +2. So right now, if I don't throw in a paratrooper, it'll be a net +1. So if I roll a 1 on the die, it becomes a 2, which would reduce the invading unit, and attacker can advance into the hex. So I think we're not going to waste our paratrooper. We're just going to let the die roll be the die roll. With a +1, a net +1, I rolled a 3, +1 is a 4, is a success, reduce 1 invading unit, eliminate 1 defending unit, surviving defenders retreat, attackers can advance. So we will flip that guy, and we take Athens, which now increases our victory point to 14. That's our total. Western Allies have 5, Soviets have 9, that is 14. So that is done. That's it. And this, now that we're in 1945, doing an invasion doesn't negatively affect our transit capability later, so no worries there. Okay, invasion's done. Now we have the Axis OK marker phase, and here we will do oil bombardment. So we're going to roll for that now. And I think this is going to be the really critical die roll. If we roll really high, and the Axis can't get these guys peeled back over here or anything, it's going to be gnarly, I'll say that. So here we go. Targeting oil. Luftwaffe present in the home box. Yes. That is a -2. Western Allies control Plosti. Western Allies or Soviets control Nagy Kaniza? Jeez. That's a total of +3. Both of those are true. So it's a net +1 of the die roll. And what do we get? Okay. I rolled a 1. So 1 + 1 is 2. So the Germans only have 5 OK points instead of 7. That could have been much worse. We actually could have seen a roll of 6. +1 is 7. The Axis could have none. They actually get 5. So that's good for the Axis. That's the best die roll they could have hoped for here. Now the question is, what can they do with 5 points to try to survive? That is the great question. So from here, I'm going to take care of the Axis action phase. I'm going to place, those OKW markers, OKH markers, and I'll do the Axis action phase when we come back. Hopefully, you'll see for the Axis a much clearer line, but I'm not sure they're going to have the ability to even do that. Okay, here we are. I spent all of the command power in the West so that I could pull, except for this poor guy in a supply fort back here, pull everybody back into a line, either occupying a supply fort, a fort, or an important city or line of defense. So this is the best German defense that I can muster situationally on the board to defend against the Allies. We're giving up Brussels, but I don't think it's a big deal to give up Brussels. It doesn't really help the Allies very much doing that. So there we go. That's it. The last stand in the West is there. If this line collapses, you're going to see loss of factories and several victory hexes, and then if that line falls, it doesn't necessarily really matter what happens in the East, because I think the Allies would have just so much momentum that they could reach Berlin themselves at that rate. That means in the East, the only movement I could do were for units that were not already in Zox, and I took an armor unit that could project Zox in the exploitation phase and brought them all the way down here. Because if I can't disengage anybody over here, or I need to maintain this delaying line, I need to get something down here to just slow these guys down. And then if we have production next turn, we'll spend all of that production over here. Just everything, every lockstep, every fallback point, trying to figure out a way to delay and just slow down the Soviets, knowing that there's going to be the winter restriction on Stavka markers that can help us a little bit. But okay, that's it for the Axis action phase, right? We're just setting up, trying to provide the best defensive, best defensive position that we can muster in every given situation of the front. Now we have the Allied and Soviet reaction phase, so I'm going to take care of that. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to want to do with that. Yeah, it's kind of tough. I could try to make something happen where we attack into Antwerp, but I'm not sure. So I'll have to think about that. On the East Front, we'll probably see some version of an attempt to crack open a line somewhere, possibly at Vienna. I think that would be probably the easiest one to go for at this point. So we'll see. I'll take care of that. We'll come back. I'll talk about what we did, and we'll figure out what happens next. Okay, so here's the Allied reaction done. We actually moved up and took Antwerp. And here's the funny thing. So there are the rules about the A symbols on adjacent hexes, which keep you from getting reinforcements into that port. So because there's this fort and this unit in it, supply fort and a unit in it, I couldn't place reinforcements directly into Antwerp. But when I checked the supply rules, I don't think there's anything that requires us to control that hex for supply purposes. And even looking at the errata, I don't see a note on that. So in theory, now I can move the Schaeff marker up to Antwerp. I think I can do that. And if I do, pretty much the Allies never have to worry about supply ever again. But I don't... It seems like if that rule keeps me from putting reinforcements into Antwerp, the same logic would apply for supply. But the rules don't say that. So I'm going to play the game as written. But I don't know. So that's an important hex, very important that we captured that. We're in good shape. So that's all I can say about that, I guess. In the East, we decided to go ahead and do the attack on Vienna, which we took. So we gained another victory hex. We're now at 15. And we kind of have a hole open to surge into the lowlands here in Austria to target Prague, possibly, in the future. Now, I also am looking to adjudicate the attrition phase, but right now I can't find any German units that are actually out of supply or that aren't already in a supply fort. This guy, you think maybe, but he can actually count 1, 2, 3... Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to Munich. So technically that Hungarian unit is in supply, I think. I mean, he's a speed bump. He's going to get run over here shortly. But the important thing is we do have kind of a path forward now further in. And we only need 4 more victory hexes. And we've got 4 pretty close in sight as it happens. So now we have the Axis Exploitation movement, which, to be honest, I'm not sure there's anything we can do with that. Because we just lost our OKW marker in Antwerp. The only other one is around here, and I don't think I want to move any of those units. So the Axis exploitation phase is actually over. That's it for the Axis. That's all they could do. Is well, not much, right? We're trying to hold on, but things are falling apart. So the cleanup phase occurs. We just take off our OKW markers, and that puts us into the Allied Soviet action phase. So I'm gonna take care of that. I guess I'm gonna move that chafe marker from over here to over here, and get 20 hexes of supply projection, which is basically all of Northwest Europe. Like this whole area here is in supply now for the Allies, Western Allies, and then we'll see the Allies try to at last fight against that wall, the fort wall of the Germans, and the Soviets will do their very level best to place Stavka in a meaningful way on the town side only, because again it is winter, and try to further break the line and surge into Germany itself. Which I guess technically, by taking Vienna, we are in Greater Germany, since Austria was annexed by Germany. But however which way you want to look at it, we'll see some results, I would think. So, see you in a second. All right, here we are after the Allied action, and you can see we have got quite a... I think we're reaching the end game. I think the game's about done. So you can see in the west, we pushed through and are right next to the factory hexes of the Germans. We did take Strasbourg, which was a victory point hex, and basically we're kind of at the point where, certainly within the next turn, the Allies should be able to take Amsterdam, would be able to take some of those factory hexes. They're just kind of at the point where they need to be. In the east, we managed to take Prague, and we are still even pushing beyond that. We also took the USIR, and we sort of made some pushes over here. I had basically done and funny the way it worked out. One Stavka up here, the two Stavka right here, 3 and then the 4, and it just worked out that way that we've made the least progress over here, not as much infrastructure. We got a lot more infrastructure down here, so it all kind of pushed up this way, and we've been successful. So very successful. In fact, I believe we are now sitting at 18 victory points. If we had Berlin, that would be enough to win. We don't yet have Berlin, so we need one more victory hex. Now, where would you want to go? Because we have a lot of options as it stands right now. Because the way that this is going to end up working is we still have an exploitation segment for either side. I think the Allies have a decent shot of trying to run across the board and grab Hamburg or something way out here. I'd have to double check our ability to do that, but I think it's conceivable that they would be capable of doing that this turn. The Soviets that are in Prague, and nothing to stop them, nothing, could scramble up and grab Berlin. Potentially. I'm trying to look, in terms of exploitation movement, they probably couldn't. And I guess for the Western Allies, they might not be able to either, now that I'm looking at it. Depending on how this would go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We couldn't quite get to Munich with those guys. But you can see, we are right at the precipice here. We are right towards the end. If we had enough oomph to have tried to take Warsaw, that would actually be enough as well. So I'll have to I'll have to count my victory hexes again and make sure. But we're pretty much towards the end here. So what's left? Well, the Axis has their reaction movement, so we could try to make something happen there to hold off a little bit more on either side of the board. I don't know what is left to do that could help defend these guys. There's just not much left on the board to stop the Soviets. So I'll take myself off camera. I'll try to figure out what can be done, but I don't think there's much. I can't knock these guys out of supply. too far away to do that. I think my issue is I neglected sending reinforcements down here. I should have had reinforcements down there much earlier than I did, and I did not. And that's probably the biggest problem for the Axis at the moment. So yeah, I'm going to try to figure out what can be done, but pending that, we might be really close to the end. So we'll figure it out. Okay, so here we are. I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit because this is the end game. So here's the situation. We are at the end of turn 2. Strategic transit is complete. The exploitation phase is complete. We couldn't quite, because of our Stavka range limit, we couldn't get very far with exploitation movement. Like, we couldn't activate very many units to do it. We can sort of see, like, we're just kind of flowing into Germany at the moment. And over here, I mean, it's a total crapshoot, right? So here's the thing. We are sitting at 18 victory points. We only need to take one more, most likely of which will probably end up being Amsterdam, but we could still potentially take Warsaw. So we're going to end up with 19 or 20 victory points. What I'm going to do is, rather than end this video here and then have you do yet another video, I'm going to play into turn 11, and I will just, off camera, play it through, and you guys will see the end state at the end of turn 11 here in a few minutes. Well, for you for a few seconds, I guess, right? And I'll explain it. Because at this point, I will simply declare, like, the Allies are going to win. Allied player will win this game on turn 11, and what is unknown is how many victory points will the Allies have at that point. It's certainly going to be at least 19, right? Will they get to Berlin? Who knows? But the victory check is not done until the end of the turn. So right now, we're one away. The game doesn't end. And we only have one of the factory hexes. So let me see. Yeah. Western Allies have 6 victory points. The Soviets have 12. So we're at 18. We need one more. I'm trying to see. Okay, well, I guess technically if you read the rolls a certain way, depending on how you want to look at it, there's an audit, like, it's a sudden death victory if we capture all the factory hexes. Otherwise, the game actually requires you to play to the end of turn 12 to adjudicate victory, if you want to play it by the book. I don't think that we'll need to do that, because what we're going to do is we're going to get to turn 11, we're going to get to the end of turn 11, and basically, like, is there any way for the Axis to take any victory hexes back? If no, then we kind of win by default, right? Or maybe we play through the end of turn 12 too. I don't know. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a cut here. I'm going to play through turn 11, and you guys will see the end result of turn 11. You might care to watch this, but I don't think there's much to say, right? We're going to have combats against Amsterdam. We're probably going to try to push into the factory hexes. We're probably going to push up into here. Maybe we wouldn't have a sudden death victory. Maybe we would. I'm not sure, right? We'll have to play it out and just see. So I will play turn 11 off camera, and when we come back, we'll see what ended up happening. Blah. All right. Okay, guys. So here we are at the end of turn 11. It being a winter turn, it kind of slowed down the Soviets still. I mean, even controlling cities, like being able to move the range of activating units for exploitation movement and all that, kind of made it really hard to do much of it, really as much as I wanted to do, honestly. It was kind of weird, where the Allies just went, they took Hamburg, Nuremberg, they took Munich, they took Essen and Dortmund. They are all over the place, right? Like, you would definitely say the game is over with. I don't see any other way for things to go really any further. let's see, one. Okay, so we're above 20 victory points, more like 21. Maybe I forgot to move the markers. Like, we're way over the threshold for victory at the end of turn 12. I think the real thing would be, like, what would happen in turn 12 itself, right? Like, if we said we were going to keep playing because we're going to follow the letter of the rule book and say, well, the game's technically not over yet, well, what's going to happen? The Germans are running out of places to place reinforcements. But what would we see? Well, I'm going to like run through it, right? There's no reinforcements. Strategic air, so we would probably do bombing and oil. Like, yeah, bombing and oil. So any which way you cut it, the Germans only have one factory left, so that's 2 production points. And we would do, Bomber Command, and nothing would happen. 8th Air Force, and they would have their Luftwaffe would be destroyed. They would have no production this turn, and then the oil would be well, there'd be no Luftwaffe. I rolled a 1, but with no Luftwaffe and a +3 to the die roll, they would only have 3 OK markers left, and they would all be used on the East Front. What would you even do, right? I mean, what is there to do? You'd probably try to pull this guy back and put him into here. Or maybe what you would do is, you try to leave some guys, do maybe something like this, and try to field some defenses around Berlin. Allies wouldn't invade. Axis operations segment would basically be that, I guess. Technically, we still have some guys in supply due to port supply. Let's see. Reaction movement. Well, so here's the thing. Who gets reaction movement first? Allied get their reaction movement first. So we would see 1, 2, 3, 4, and they would attack Berlin. Rolling for Berlin, C grade, we would have 4, 8, 9, and being in a city makes it 10. So 10 combat factors. We'd be attacking with 17, 16, so 33 to 10, 3 to 1 odds. So what are we going to get on 3 to 1 odds? I rolled a 1, but that's a DR. So a DR would be defender retreats if more than one defending loses 1 step, so we would lose a step. We'd lose this guy. You'd have to retreat, so you could maybe do that. Then the Allies would take Berlin, and that would be it. That would be game. So we would be. It would basically we would have been in turn 12, and I'm playing really loose. Like, I'm not quite following the rules. I'm just kind of smashing my way through the phases. We would officially, by the book, win the game on the Allied reaction phase. Oh no, I'm sorry. I actually got that wrong. It wouldn't be. We wouldn't have been able to move these guys. We've only been able to move 3 units. 1, 2, 1. We would have only been able to do, would have been a 16 to 10. I'm sorry. I rolled a 1 on a 16 to 10, so plus that would be AA. Attacker chooses equal number of sets to eliminate, and we would have had 1, 2, 3 steps. They could have taken 3 steps. Oh, see, that's the bummer. So this is what would have happened. It would have been like that occurred. They wouldn't have been able to advance with an AA result, and then I guess the Soviets would be able to do a move, and they would have been like 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no, I guess they couldn't get in. They wouldn't have been able to get in on that. So it would be, I don't know, like you would, I guess, attack like something like this, and 14 to 1, 2, 14 to 4 would be 3 to 1. 1. He's got to retreat, and he really can retreat over here, and these guys would be here. We still wouldn't be able to walk into Berlin. And then that's all the reaction segment. Then you would have attrition, which then here's the problem. Everyone can't actually trace supply to 2 factory hexes. That's really what you need, right? We're beyond the game now. We're just some pure ridiculousness. Okay, so because all German units trace ultimate supply to the 4 prior to the factory traced to can itself trace a line communication to another one, which can't. So here's the thing. I'm pretty sure this means that like every unit just goes away, right? They can't trace supply to Berlin. They can't trace supply to anywhere. I think technically they might be in supply due to the ports, but even that technically is not, I mean, to me that shouldn't count as supply for any units that aren't isolated. So everyone goes poof, right? That would basically be what happens. And then what? Again, it depends on the movement step, and it would be the Allies who walk into Berlin and win the game. And then automatic victory there. So, okay, it would take us to the end of turn 12 to win the game. If you were comparing the Allies to the Soviets, I guess the Allies got into Berlin first. Again, playing loosely, maybe the Soviets could have done it if I was trying harder. But the Allies definitely won. In fact, I mean, they technically would have been able to grab every victory hex on the map. So, yeah, that's it. Holy cow, holy crap. We're done. Officially. We could say we played through turn 12, so this video will be turns 10, 11, 12, finale, or final. And the Allies have won the game. So, what to do? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this video up. It's probably pretty long, but it does serve as the finale. And then I think I will do a post-mortem video next. Post-mortem is not the same as a review. It's just going to be me talking about the game itself and kind of how things ended. And yeah, I think we're good. See you in the next one, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching. Keep on gaming, good stuff, have fun.